What's up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Grand Trine in astrology. The Grand Trine is an aspect configuration between at least 3 planets in the natal chart, and it is an aspect configuration that promotes harmony, cooperation, and ease between the planets and points involved within it. So, first, like, what is a trine? So a trine is shows a relationship between two planets that are in harmony with each other. They have a sense of cooperation. They're supporting each other. There's familiarity involved, and it also promotes like gifts and things that come easy to the person who has the grand trine, who has a trine. And so if you have a grand trine, you have 3 planets all forming a trine with each other, and this forms a triangle because a trine divides the circle by the natal chart by 3, and a trine is planets that are 120 degrees apart, and the birth chart is 360 degrees in total. So when you have this triangular formation, it can represent installation, pleasure, things that come easy to you. And some of the examples that I have Tom Cruise, who has a grand trine in his chart, and he has a grand trine between his sun in Cancer, his Chiron in Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces, and Neptune in Scorpio. And that makes me think of the Scientology organization that he's a part of, because the Cancer Sun would represent the sense of family and the tribe. The Chiron and Jupiter and Pisces represent an organization that is different from the typical religion, or different from the standard of what we see in everyday life. It is a religion that is not really one that is traditional. So, and you have the Neptune and Jupiter rule religion, and his Neptune is in Scorpio. Scorpio deals with prominence. So with that grand trine, that shows that he has a certain amount of installation within that group or within the organization, and also influence. So grand trines show whatever planet or sign it's in, will show those areas in life where you tend to have a better chance at being successful or having protection or getting away with things. And it isn't always positive. Like, you can have a grand trine and use that facilitative energy for criminal activity and kind of get away with it. It all depends on what you're doing with it. um a trine is a very stagnant aspect in general. It's very comfortable, and it's not an aspect that generates tension. So in that respect, it can be rather latent. So if you have a grand trine, you may receive a lot of support from the areas that that grand trine represents, such as the planets and the house that those planets are sitting in and ruling. But you may let them go to waste and take them for granted, and as a result, you may become somebody who is spoiled, who has a dislike for taking the initiative. You may be lazy or unmotivated, and you may justify your bad behavior and expect that things will always work out in your favor, because when you have a grand trine, things typically do work out in your favor. They typically always kind of, you know, you kind of have this sense of protection. But it's those times where things don't work out in your favor, where you really hit the pavement and you really have to take a step back and adjust how things are going in your life. So it doesn't always work out where you're gonna just have this picture perfect life, but it does show where you do have a large vessel or well of talent and creativity and productivity. And if you're one of those people who take that and decide to use it for ill will, then you're not really taking full advantage of it. Sometimes people with grand trines can come off kind of closed circuited, where they don't really like any type of outside intervention because they don't want anyone messing up the flow of things. And Trine is like a flow, and they don't want anybody coming in and messing up their flow and knocking them off their game, even if they're trying to help them. So they can have that just spoiled kind of arrogant mentality. A Grand Trine carries the energy of the sun and Leo, which reinforces the theme of creativity and productivity and like support and winning awards and being a maverick in the areas that Grand Trine involves. However, just like Leo, they can be rather arrogant, closed off to outside interference, and just not receptive and expect that they should get this type of treatment, even though they may not have done anything to warrant that treatment. And that's kind of how Leo is as a sign sometimes on the more negative end. Whitney Houston has a Grand Trine between her sun, her moon, and her sun is in Leo, her moon is in Aries, and I don't know the rest of the Grand Trine she has, but just that Leo alone can, being involved in that Grand Trine can show where she is able to receive a lot of support by putting herself on front stage and being a performer. Also, Billie Holiday, we mentioned Tom Cruise, Etta James, Kurt Cobain had a water Grand Trine, and he was extremely artistic and very, very, very involved in like the little things involving music. And a water Grand Trine, if you're familiar with tarot, a water Grand Trine is to me akin to the Ace of Cups because it represents an overflow of water. You know, it's too much. There's too much familiarness going on, and even though it can give you an extremely creative bent towards music and spirituality, it can represent an overflow of emotions. And so I think that's kind of, in his case, was a positive for his music and spirituality, but in terms of his probably personal life was detrimental because he had just too much water going on. So LeBron James also has a Grand Trine, and he has a Grand Trine between his ascendant in Gemini, which represents his physical body, his Mars in Pisces, which represents athleticism, whatever. Pluto and Scorpio in the 5th house. Pluto and Scorpio is do or die, going hard, and in the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of sports and games and entertainment, and also his midheaven, which represents his career and his public life. In Pisces is involved, and that Pisces influence is representing the media and the public and being having a highly televised personality. So Grand Trine, when utilized properly, can be one of the most beneficial things. You can really achieve a lot and win a lot of awards and be highly recognized, but you have to put forth some effort, which is why it is very good if you have a planet forming a hard aspect, such as a conjunction, opposition, or square, to kind of generate some fire to one of those planets to get it moving. Also, I want to mention something known as the minor Grand Trine or the minor triangle. So the minor Grand Trine is formed by two planets in trine with a third planet at the apex, which is the top, forming a sextile to both. So it's not as significant as the Grand Trine. However, because it has those sextiles involved, a sextile is also a harmonious aspect, and those sextiles motivate us to put in some work, which makes the configuration less stagnant and more dynamic. And the apex represents the outlet for that creative talent. So if you have a minor Grand Trine or a minor triangle, in some cases that may be more beneficial than having a Grand Trine, because a Grand Trine, you have to be responsible with it, you have to use it. And with the minor triangle, you're motivated to put in that work to reap the benefits. And so it may, in a minor Grand Trine, a minor Grand Trine kind of carries the energy of Jupiter and a Pisces. So it's very much so about things, or I think it also carries the energy of Mercury as well. So it's more so about communication and spirituality, and also being more specific with your talent. That's um so that's it for my video. If you like what I said, please like, comment, and subscribe. Do have more videos coming, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have a Grand Trine, please drop down in the comments below, and explain your experiences with a Grand Trine, or experiences with dealing with someone who has a Grand Trine, and how it has manifested in your life. So until then, next time.